The problem with prayer. I don't feel comfortable when someone asks me to pray for them or for a situation in the world, or when they offer to pray for me. There are many things that disturb me about prayer. To understand why, let me present a hypothetical but entirely plausible situation. Imagine that I were involved in a multi car collision on a highway in which several people were killed, but from which I and my family walked away unscathed. It's natural under those circumstances to offer some kind of spontaneous prayer of thanksgiving. Many of us, even those of us who don't believe in God, may do this by a kind of reflex given the circumstances. I understand this impulse, and I too would feel, if not gratitude exactly, at least relief that I hadn't been injured. However, once the initial moment has passed and I have had time to reflect on this from a safe perspective, I may ask, well, what, if taken literally, does such a prayer for thanksgiving imply? Do I think that God has intervened on my behalf to spare me? If so, why did he not also spare the others? Was there some special reason why I was spared? Am I better than the others in some way, or more important? Has God made some kind of decision along the lines that we might be forced to make in the hypothetical lifeboat situation? We have one lifeboat with room for only 10 people, but there are 15 of us. Who do we leave behind? Does God have particular criteria that make some people more important and valuable than others? I think we'd probably find that quite offensive. Or does he simply draw straws in a situation like that? In which case, I can't see any grounds really for considering myself more highly valued, and also no grounds for gratitude. Looked at in the cold light of day, a prayer of thanks to God hardly seems appropriate. Are the families of those who were killed also thanking God for taking them into his care, for preventing their ongoing suffering? Are those who faced long months and years of painful suffering also thanking him for the opportunity to grow? It seems to me that the concept of gratitude becomes meaningless under the weight of all these qualifications. Now let's consider intercessory prayer, a situation in which I ask God to intervene on my own or someone else's behalf to bring about a particular situation that wouldn't otherwise come about without such an intervention. Suppose I pray, following the above accident, that the insurance company will agree to repair my car rather than write it off, which would result in a considerable financial loss for me. What precisely, if we pray to God for this, are we expecting God to do? Are we expecting Him to interfere with the assessor's neural pathways in order to change their thought processes? Do we expect God to do this indirectly, perhaps via some other event in the world which influences the person's thought processes? I won't go into the implications of this for causality, except to point out that if God causes the assessor to experience something similar in their own life that influences their decision, then the problem is really just pushed back one step in the chain of cause and effect. Clearly, to my mind anyway, any direct intervention by God in the thought processes of the assessor would be a serious violation of that person. And then there's the outcome. If the outcome is not what I expected, I then proceed to thank God for bringing an outcome that I try to convince myself is clearly better than the one that I had envisaged. So again, we're back to gratitude that's meaningless under the weight of qualifications. If prayer has any effect in the world at all, and billions of people would doubtless argue that it does, it's in this. It's in the change that it brings about in the thought processes, perceptions, and behavior of the prayer. If I pray, it changes me, not God or the world around me or anything else in it. Of course, taking time to quietly reflect on a situation, entering a meditative state to allow our minds to clear and our unconscious processes to work. All of this requires no supernatural intervention nor any belief in the supernatural at all. And if this was all that people meant by prayer, then I really wouldn't have a problem with it. But it really isn't, is it?